knew I had a knack with knowing when guys cheat, or, if the relationship would last. I did move my bed at 17 when my friend Barbara, who was my maid of honor at our wedding, she spent the night. When you're 17, we were in the same bed. We went out, we went to a party, came back. And before we had left, I moved my bed from the south wall to the east wall. And she said, "Why did you do that?" And I said, "That voice told me to move it, the one that protects me." And she said, "You're so weird." And we went to sleep, and a truck drove through my bedroom wall that night. And I actually have a picture of it. Drove through my bedroom wall, and where I moved the bed was the only place we wouldn't have been killed, because the truck was completely in the room. So we would have been pinned under it. And Barbara and I went to Taco Bell the next day, and she was like, "We almost died." She's like, "You moved the bed. That's why we're alive." And we were just trying to wrap our minds around what had just happened. And neither of our moms were hearing it. They're like, "Well, you're just lucky to be alive." But they weren't quite getting that I was told to move the bed. So parents aren't always all that helpful.
Do you still talk to this Barbara? I mean,
oh yeah.
Wow.
We've been friends since we were 13.
Well, that's like a telltale sign right there. I mean, that you moved the bed. I mean,
right.
Wow.
Kind of. Yeah.
So, I mean, well, I also would think that you would be somewhat popular then. I mean, if you could like predict when like a guy was the wrong guy for your girlfriends and like cheating, I would think people would be like, "Let's just go to Allison and like figure out if this is the right one."
Some, the really honest ones did, but I think, as you know, and I know, and your audience knows, most of our girlfriends don't want to know the truth necessarily. They'd rather pretend things are okay.
That is true.
Yeah. And I was fine with that, because I never gave them information unless it was something that was going to put them in danger. Then I would say something to protect. But for instance, if they tried to go with somebody and I got a bad feeling, like a rape feeling on that person, I'd pull them back by their arm and I'm like, "Now you need to stay." And it's when I learned how to be really assertive, was at that age, because it came out as protection. And so even though people out there are spiritual, we're not doormats. And we do know how to put our foot down on somebody's neck if necessary.
Totally.
And that's when that started for me, because yeah, it's like little kids. And maybe you've had this happen when you'd be in a grocery store and you get a bad vibe on someone, or they make you want to move to the other end of the aisle or to the other side of the store. You just know, or you keep an eye on them to make sure that they're not around little kids. There's just something inside of you that is warning you, almost, your inner voice saying, be careful. So I think we all have that intuitive nature if we listen to our inner voice. I think a lot of people are distracted by the outward world and sometimes fail to listen to what it's trying to tell them.
Interesting. And I would agree with that. So you have this gift. There's so many different, things you can do with it and ways you can go. And I know you've done a lot in your career. Like, how do you then, end up in the DA's office, and how do you decide to like say, I am going to, like you said, run and catch up right before the murder and help solve murders? Like, how did that become the pathway?
I think a lot of what happened for me was fated, honestly. I, like I told you, had been dreaming of murders and had that need to save, that savior complex, my whole existence. So when it came to being a lawyer, I knew in the 5th grade, I wanted to be a prosecutor. I already knew I wanted to be a homicide prosecutor. Boom, right there. Already knew. I was carrying attache cases since I was 11 and wearing penny loafers. That's who I was. So when I was a senior in college, I went to homicide at Maricopa County's DA's office. And I wanted to intern. I wanted an internship. And all the women, and this has been my experience in life, all the women said, "No, we don't have any openings. Thanks for coming." And they sort of shuffle you out to the front. So I was waiting for my parking to be validated. And this man sat next to me and he said, "What are you doing? What are you doing here?" And I said, "I was here for an internship, but they told me they have no openings." And he said, he happened to be pretty high up, we'll just put that. And he said, "I need an intern." And the walk I got to have back to his office when he was the boss of the bosses and be his intern, priceless to see their faces fall. And then they got to work with me. So while I was interning, I was seeing what was happening before the person was killed. It was my job to sort crime scene photos to go to court. And I kept getting this feeling, and I'd feel if it was motivated by, sexually motivated, or if it was financially motivated. And so I'd get this vibe on it. And the man I was interning for said, if you can tap into pictures, can you tap into people? And I said, yeah, I've always done that. And he said, can you tap into 13, which is a jury plus the alternate? And I said, I could try. And so I was given a stack of jury questionnaires to run my hands over. And I could feel if a woman had been sexually assaulted at any point in her life. So it was my job to put those women on the jury because our victim had been raped before she was murdered. And these are women that I had to put on the jury. We were going for a death penalty. We're Arizona, not California. So we do that still, And they said they'd never give a death penalty under any circumstances. So that's why I wanted one who would empathize with my victim. So we put them on, and the defense didn't even see it coming. They thought these women would never flip on and give a death penalty. And they all came back with the death penalty because the anger that they felt and the helplessness from their own sexual assault, they were getting justice for our victim.
Wow. And the other side didn't even know these things about these women, or just, it wasn't public knowledge.
No, it wasn't. No. A lot of women don't talk about being sexually assaulted or molested in their life. And so, no, it was nothing that they ask in jury questionnaires or anything.
So after that, was this boss of the boss's boss like, wait, you're like the best intern we ever had? And
that first one was scary because the jury was out for 6 days, and you know what that means. It's probably a hung jury, or you're going to get a not guilty maybe, but you're not going to get a guilty. And they came back on that 6th day and gave the guilty, and he got to take the podium in the press conference on the news, and I got to be at home with my kids getting ready for TGI Fridays for dinner, watching him announce that they had gotten justice for her. And she was a law student at ASU. So to me, that was personal as well, because that could have been that could have been me, that could have been anyone I know. And it was amazing. But yeah, then I worked I selected 6 juries, and then
wow.
medium came out, and then people knew what I looked like, and I could end up hurting the prosecution if somebody in a jury took it out on me that they didn't believe in what